Up Your Game with CMO Coaches is for current and aspiring chief marketing officers. Each episode will feature one of our experienced CMO coaches focusing on a topic that they are passionate about to help you up your game. Well, today's guest is Nancy Zwiers. She began her brand building career at P&G with a strong strategic foundation. She later joined Mattel, the leader in the dynamic, innovation, and driven industry. And as Senior Vice President of Global Marketing for the Barbie brand, Nancy led the team that drove Barbie revenue to historic highs through product and marketing innovations. After a decade at Mattel, Nancy founded Philosophy, a consulting and toy innovation firm. She oversaw a team working with over 200 clients from huge companies like Disney to small startups, and licensed multiple toy innovations, earning over $1 million in royalties. After 16 years as an entrepreneur, Nancy joined longtime client Spin Master as their EVP and Global Chief Marketing Officer. An innovator, Spin Master created Paw Patrol franchise, and every year launches 100 or more new products globally. Nancy's been an executive coach with CMO Coaches since 2020. And Nancy, welcome to Up Your Game with CMO Coaches.
Great. I'm happy to be here, Alan.
Well, today's topic, as you know, is Up Your Game and driving innovation. So Nancy, of all the topics you could have chose to talk about, why did you choose to speak about innovation?
Well, I've had a track record of success over 30 years of innovative business building success. And it has really helped me elevate my game in my career. And so I want to share some of my thoughts about innovation to help others really harness the power that innovation can unleash in terms of moving the business to new heights. And furthermore, I was reviewing a McKinsey report from several years ago that talked about the future skills of work. They were describing 56 different skills and talents that were in 4 different domains. And I noticed that quite a number of these talents and skills had to do with innovation. For example, in the self-leadership domain, there were things like, courage and risk-taking, driving change and innovation, even the word innovation in that one, energy, passion, and optimism, and breaking orthodoxies. And then in the cognitive skills domain, there were some other things that really feed into innovation, things like creativity and imagination, translating knowledge to different contexts. I call that lateral thinking, which is really the heart and soul of creativity. Adapting different perspectives, taking on a new view of things, and in general, adaptability, adapting to changing conditions, etc. And to adapt, you often need to innovate. So I think this topic can really help people turbocharge their careers if they embrace what it means to innovate and really, put themselves to the test to do so.
Yeah. Well, those skills you just described that are in the McKinsey report, tell us a little bit more about what you think, how they lead to successful innovation.
Well, the cognitive skills I talked about really have to do with conceptualizing new ideas. The seed of innovation starts with a business building idea that's new to the brand, maybe not new to the world, but new to the business you're working on. And then the entrepreneurial skill set really has to do with what it takes to drive innovation forward. Innovation is tough and it takes a lot of courage, and you have to be willing to take risks. And so it's not enough to have a great idea. You have to harness the resources of the organization, the passion, and lead the charge into uncharted territory. And that can be a little scary for people. So it's not for the faint of heart.
Love it. Well, you spent a lot of time in the toy industry, and you've described it, I think, as innovation driven
Yes.
in its essence. What defines an innovative oriented industry?
Great question, Alan. Oftentimes, the consultants of the world describe an innovation driven industry based on the percentage of revenue that comes from products introduced in the last 3 years. What I can tell you about toys is that almost, over 80% of the revenue in general comes from products that are launched in just the last 2 years. So we are constantly introducing new products, constantly. And we're not just talking improvements. And it really is defined by innovation in the sense that not only are the products new, but the whole marketing campaign around those product launches, has to be new by definition. So I think that's a really important point. And even people say, well, I worked on Barbie for quite a number of years. And people go, Barbie's been around for a long time, and actually over 65 years to be clear. But every year we introduced hundreds of new SKUs in Barbie. So the brand was the same, and we had to stay true to the brand, but we had to find new ways to deliver on that brand and new ways to get consumers to resonate to the story we were telling.
Yeah. Well, and if people watching this haven't noticed, you have Barbie wallpaper behind you, which is
I
amazing,
do.
by the
This is the original Barbie, and I brought some props.
way.
This is the 35th anniversary Barbie. It was part of the collector business that I ran at the time. And I do have a story to tell about that. But, the interesting thing is that everyone can relate to Barbie. Most girls, almost all girls, have grown up playing with Barbie. And when I tell many guys about Barbie, they have a story to tell, usually about pulling the heads off their sister's Barbie doll. Even parents talk about, stepping on Barbie's little miniature high heels. And so there's, everyone can relate to Barbie. So I do have a story, to talk about Barbie in our time together.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. Before we move to the stories, because I definitely want to get there, what's your best advice on driving innovation?
Good question. Well, as a marketer, I am very focused on the consumer, very focused on understanding the consumer in a deep way. And so, what I would say is the most successful innovation is truly grounded in a consumer insight. It's not some random form of newness. And the other thing I would say about the idea for the innovative new initiative being grounded in a consumer insight, something tangible that you can speak to, that enables people to get behind you, take the risks that are involved in innovation, because there's a rationale for them to believe it can work. It's not just, oh, someone came up with a new idea. So that would be one of the most important pieces of advice I would share with your listeners to really make innovation, successful in building the business.
Right. Well, let's talk a few stories and maybe link it to the consumer insight that led you to innovate some of those businesses. Maybe we start with Barbie, if you want.
Okay. Well, one of the things I was so excited about when I joined the Barbie business is, as you can imagine, a lot of people had a stake in Barbie. It represented about 80% of Mattel's profits at the time. And so there were people above me that, had their hands in the business. I wanted to have a chance to prove myself in my business building ability. And so I chose a little tiny segment. It was like a $6 million business out of a $1 billion business at the time, the Barbie collector segment. At the time, it consisted of porcelain replicas of original vintage Barbie dolls. And they were all over $100 in price. And they were targeted to a pretty small segment, powerful, of avid Barbie collectors. And that business had been chugging along for a number of years and pretty much level at $6 million. I had the thought as a business builder, and I did the math. There were 28 million women that grew up playing with Barbie between the ages of 25 and 50. And I said, why not create a new segment of casual collectors where we can tap into that, that memory of childhood joy, and but to do it at a more reasonable price, to really parlay the affordability of vinyl, and to create themes that would have broad resonance for people. And so the insight was that there was untapped potential of people who had really wonderful memories of Barbie, love in their heart. And so we started to think about this brand new defined segment called casual collectors. And we basically continued, the model of progress is transcend, but still include. So we kept our avid collectors and we kept targeting them, but we started creating a different kind of product for this, purported casual collector segment. Well, the business exploded because indeed there was this pent up demand for so many women to tap into that childhood joy that they experienced with the brand. And so in 3 years, after humming along at 6 million, in 3 years, we went from 6 million to 175 million.
Wow.
And the business was extremely profitable. We had gross margins, in the basic Barbie business of around a very healthy 60%, but in the collector area, it was closer to 80%. And so it became, as it grew in size of revenue, 175, it was a very profitable piece of the business. And it literally drove Mattel's stock price because the profitability of Barbie was demonstrably higher by doing this. So it was such a fun experience to take something that, was unimportant, no one was paying attention to above me, and to really make it a very, very instrumental part of the success of the business.
I love that. I love how, you took this niche segment, if you will, understood it, understood how you could expand it, grow the segment, deliver a product, and holy cow, the results that you were able to achieve was amazing.
That's right. And by the way, we did a strategy session to identify what are key drivers of this business. And we had a very important insight. The insight was a strong secondary market was imperative to driving the collectible business, because if consumers, believed that they could always sell a Barbie doll for more than what they paid for it, they would buy more. And so part of my job was to beat back people who wanted to make, more. So we'd leave some demand on the table, because at the time it was like printing money. And so, I will say that it took fortitude to hold the line. And when that effort to hold the line kind of dissipated after I left the business indeed, started to crumble. So I think being a true innovator takes a lot of intestinal fortitude.
I love that. I love the example. I hear you have another example and maybe another prop.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you about Well, wait, before I show my other prop, I want to give another example
Sure.
about an innovation I did at Mattel. And then I want to talk about something at Spin Master where I ended my corporate career. Um, I left the Barbie brand because I wanted more freedom and independence. And I took over a division that was all the other girls' toys and brands besides Barbie. And there was a brand called Polly Pocket that had been, in the marketplace for about at that point, maybe 8 years, which is a really long time for a brand in toys to survive. If you can, last for 8 years, you're doing well. But it had started to die. And there was a lot of sameness to the brand. And the thing about toys is you need a constant stream of newness to maintain vitality in the marketplace. So I took it over and they were prepared to, let this brand die and move on. And having come from Barbie, a fashion doll business, um, I took a fresh look at the Polly Pocket brand. This was a doll that was a little 1 inch, we called it a peg. And the whole magic of it was that this little doll representation was in a little play set. And you open up the play set, maybe it was a compact or something. And then it was a little play environment. And, you can doinky doink your Polly Pocket peg doll through this little environment. And there was 8 years of doing that. Now, having come from Barbie, I knew that almost, the lion's share of the business was in the dolls, not the play sets. It was a 9 to 1 ratio, 90%, 10%. And I thought, well, so Polly Pocket, no one's paying attention to the dolls. What if we made the doll more important? So that was the first insight. And we took the doll, we made it 6 inches instead of a 1 inch peg. And we were able to give it hair and, et cetera. And I also knew that in order to have a complete play pattern on Barbie, you needed to buy multiple dolls and a play set and different fashions. And that could run you, $50 or more when all is said and done. And the thing about a collectible world of product is the more you have, the more fun you can have, more flexibility you have to play out stories. And I said, we've got scale. Polly Pocket was all about miniature reality. Let's turn her into a miniature fashion doll. And I took all my knowledge from Barbie and put it into the Polly Pocket brand. And I said, hey, for $9.99, you can get 2 dolls, 3 fashions, and you've got something there. And then the play sets were much smaller in scale. So they were, $20 instead of $40 or $50. And so we were able to create a collectible world of product around Polly Pocket that could compete with Barbie. And then finally, in the case of Polly Pocket, we were lucky that there was an invention that had been submitted to the Mattel company about what we called it craton clothing. And these were clothing made of vinyl. And we conceptualized this clothing as being perfect for Polly Pocket. It was little and you could just slide the clothes on and off. So it actually even was better than Barbie because it was easier to dress.
Right.
And so the hardest part about that innovation, however, was that I had to get everyone on board. And everyone is already off of it. And if you lose the retail trade, they don't want to buy it anymore, you're done. So we had to convince first the sales force that they could sell it. Then the hard part was convincing the retailers, but we were able to get them on board. And again, it really takes thought leadership to drive innovation. You have to, and it takes the courage of your convictions. And so Polly Pocket was relaunched to great success. And we took a brand that was given up for dead, and in its new form, it went on to achieve over $1.5 billion in subsequent sales over the course of many years.
Right.
And so that's an example of applying knowledge from other contexts where I could bring my Barbie expertise into the Polly Pocket business. And speaking of applying things from other contexts, I want to talk a little bit about Hatchimals. When I joined Spin Master, this product was already in the works. It was an amazing product. It basically was an egg that, through your love, you would move it around, and the egg would actually start cracking, and the little character inside the egg would crack and hatch. And so, thus the name Hatchimals. So, this was an amazing product. The trade, the retail trade, when they pick which toys they're going to get behind, they all wanted to get behind this in a big way. They knew it was a big innovation. So, in this particular case, I did not innovate the product. The product was incredibly innovative already. But we had a situation where the launch quantities needed for the trade to be able to put the displays up and advertise it, we couldn't make enough product when typically you set the shelves, which is in early August. That's when we set the new planogram for the new holiday season's worth of toys. And so, a case where, necessity is the mother of invention, I started drawing or thinking about my experience working in the video game, computer game area as a consultant when I had Philosophy, and all of the launches were pre-advertised, and there was a street date that when that new title was going to hit the shelves, and you built up pent up demand. And meanwhile, in toys, there was a cardinal rule: you never advertise to empty shelves. Well, we couldn't have launch quantities until October, and early October instead of August. So we said, let's create a street date called Hatchimal Day or Hatch Day. And let's do teaser advertising in September where we showed little snippets, different snippets of the hatching sequence, but you never saw what hatched. And then what we did on Hatch Day is we put concentrated resources around one weekend. And the plan was to launch it in a huge way in that weekend, and then continue advertising throughout, the holidays marketing season. And it was so successful that we ran 3 weeks of advertising in October, and we realized we weren't going to have enough product to meet demand according to our forecasts. So we had to pull the rest of the advertising off the airwaves that we had planned. And people may remember that it was a craze. There were parents lining up around stores. And if, some people thought this was, done by design, but no, we much would have preferred to have a better accurate forecast of what we could have sold. But this was an over $50 product, which is very, very expensive. And so we didn't want to get ahead of our skis. And we ended up, estimating too low. But it all started with borrowing a page from something that was proven in another industry and bringing it in to meet the need of the moment. We had to figure out, how are we going to make this work? And the results were a brand that ultimately went on to do, a $500 million worth of revenue in just a number of years. It was super, super exciting to be a part of that. So those are some of my favorite innovation stories.
Those are great stories. And You always, as a marketer, you always want to hype your product, but I think that Hatchimals example it takes it to a whole new level. So thank you
Yeah,
for
it
sharing
was
those.
amazing. It was amazing. Product is king in the toy industry. So I had to give kudos to the team, the advanced concepts team and Spin Master and the chief creative officer for really creating this amazing product that everyone wanted. And that enabled us to really, prevail in an exciting way.
Well, you talked about some of the obstacles you had to overcome in each of those stories, but when you think about what gets in the way of innovation, what are some of the things that get in the way?
Well, McKinsey has written a report on what gets in the way of innovation and fear. As simple as that, fear. People are afraid of the uncertainty. People are afraid of potential adverse impact to their career. They're afraid of criticism. And so, that's why number one, you ground your innovation in, a very real consumer insight. And I've thought through some other things that I think can help you manage the fear of this risk taking endeavor. The definition of risky is it might not work. And so, and it's hard to get a whole organization rowing in the same direction for something that might not work. And so some of the observations that I've made about um, times to really, where situations that are more innovation friendly, if you will, would be when it's too small to really mean, to be a big loss. And so in the case of the collector business, it was only $6 million. No one really cared. And so we burst upon the scene and made it happen, but we didn't have to, do anything uphill. In the case of Polly Pocket, there was this idea of creating a compelling story about why this could work. We made enough change in order to, really get people to believe that it was indeed possible. And there's a lot more to that story that we don't have time to get into. But really having that compelling story. And by the way, that applied to the Barbie example too. The compelling story. Hey, these 28 million women. Let's talk to them. And then I also think about on the flip side of something small, you've got great strength behind you, like Hatchimals. This product was super strong. And so when you've got great strength, you can leverage that to take some risks. And in all of those cases, I think this idea of lateral thinking, when you can take something that's already been proven and then apply it to your business in where it's never been applied before. You're not starting from something new to the world that's never before worked. You're taking something that has worked and you're just applying it in a new situation. And so those are some of the ways that I think can be more innovation friendly. There's another thing where I talk about, maybe this is small, but there's a slight tweak on that, where it's kind of like, what do you got to lose? You know, and there are certain situations where you're desperate and you've got nothing to lose. Maybe Polly Pocket was a good example of that, although it was a big investment to relaunch it. So maybe it's not quite right. But those are some of the things that I think represent situations that make innovation more likely to really take off and succeed.
Those are great additions. So you're doing coaching now as part of CMO Coaches and otherwise. What advice would you give someone looking for an executive coach to up your game?
Well, the unique thing about CMO coaches is we're all former CMOs. We've been through the trenches. We've experienced a lot. We know what the job is like. And so even though we're not consultants, we have the ability to truly understand a situation from a firsthand perspective, and that allows us to empathize with our clients. So I coach people who are executives. I coach entrepreneurs because I'm fortunate enough to have entrepreneur experience, 16 years of it. And I coach people in career transitions because I am, a branding expert, and I help people really hone their personal brand. So I think that if you're in the marketing space, CMO Coaches is a great place to start. Now, there are a number of different coaches that have different specialties. Mine is self-leadership and entrepreneurial skill set, and that includes intrapreneurial skill set and business building. And so, you want to kind of find the coach that has the specialties that represent the areas that you want to focus in. For example, our fearless leader, Kip Knight, who founded CMO Coaches, he specializes in team building and team leadership. So that, I would say, is one thing. And then the other thing I would add is that I always have a conversation with a prospective client. And in the toy space where we're marketing to children, we always talk about show, don't tell. So I turned that initial conversation into a coaching session. And so I try and give people a flavor for what coaching with, a coaching relationship with me would be like. They don't have to imagine it. They get to experience it. So I would encourage people to, find the right background. And then in that, conversation, when you're assessing the fit, really, determine the fit through, real life experience, real life conversation. And I can say that it's worked beautifully because, in every case, my clients have been a great fit for me, and I've been a great fit for them.
Well, Nancy, we've covered a lot of different points today around innovation and how to get a good coach. If you only people could take away one thing, what would you want them to take away from this conversation today?
It's worth it to take the risks involved with innovation. When I joined Mattel, now granted, I had 10 years of solid CPG experience, and I joined as a senior manager. But within 5 years, I was the SVP of Global Marketing for the brand in the company that represented 80% of the company's profits. And I got noticed in my first 18 months in the company by being an innovator. So if you want to rise to the top and be a true business builder and not just check off the boxes of going through the motions of the marketing skill sets, but really be a business builder, innovation is part of that. And as marketers, grounding all of your thinking in the consumer is so, so essential. And so if you're going to innovate, make sure, as I said up top, make sure your innovative idea is grounded in some kind of consumer insight.
Well, Nancy, thank you for coming on Up Your Game.
Okay, it's been great. I love talking about innovation. Thanks, Alan.
This episode of Up Your Game is brought to you by CMO Coaches. If you want to work with a coach, visit cmocoaches.com. This episode is brought to you in collaboration with Club CMO. Club CMO is an exclusive member organization that brings together chief marketing officers and other senior marketing executives for networking, knowledge sharing, and professional development. Through a peer-led, no-selling environment, the club provides exclusive access for marketing leaders to connect, exchange ideas, and stay up to date on industry trends and everyday challenges. This content was produced by Sam Robertson.